to a guy who'll be working a little more closely with our next president, regardless of his or her party, than the rest of us. Congressman Joe Kennedy joins me. Congressman, it's great to see you.
Wonderful. Thanks
Did
for
you watch
having me.
last night?
I watched part of it.
Give me a 30-second reaction.
What a night. And look, Donald Trump, the campaign can't manage their own convention. I don't know how they're going to manage a country.
Are we overplaying this Melania Trump thing, though?
Look, Melania Trump was just one piece to it. There was a floor fight that campaign, the RNC, basically tamped down and trampled over a sizable percentage of their delegates on the floor, including a U.S. senator. We had a Melania Trump issue with plagiarizing a speech. You had some of their primetime stars that ended up getting pushed off until very late. It was a disaster of a first night for the Republicans in their convention.
You remember Barack Obama once, I wouldn't know if it's plagiarized, borrowed some words from a guy you know, Deval Patrick, remember?
And the difference in that, Jim, was when they were asked about it, President Obama and Deval Patrick both said, yes, they did, and that they pointed out that Deval Patrick was in fact the campaign chairman and that they talk all the time. We have yet to see any sort of accountability or responsibility by a Trump campaign to say, you know what, we screwed up. Somebody on our team made a mistake. Own it and deal with it. There's no attempt at accountability here. And that's been the big problem throughout the course of the day today.
The theme last night was law and order, and what they wanted, I think, the viewer to leave with, if they weren't, if it wasn't obscured by this Melania thing, we're the law and order party. We care about cops. His party cares about protesters and criminals. And are you worried that, I mean, to me, it was almost like Dukakis, Bush the First redux. Are you worried that that sticks on the Democratic Party?
Not at all. Look, I think I come from a law enforcement background. I'm proud of the fact that I worked as a prosecutor. I count police officers as friends. And believe me, Jim, as you know, when you work in a criminal justice system, you spend your day learning about, reading about, and understanding the risks that police officers take every single day to keep us safe. President Obama has gone out of his way to ensure, to talk about the violence and the targeting of police officers, to condemn it in the strongest possible terms. We've also seen, and I think it's undeniable, to recognize that there are tensions that exist between particularly minority communities and communities of color and law enforcement. Not in every community across the country, but in some of them. And we as a society and as a government have a responsibility to address that. Ignoring that, I think, does a disservice to anybody that is actually trying to parse our way through a very difficult debate in our country.
There's another issue. Your candidate, Hillary Clinton's got a trust problem. She acknowledges on Charlie Rose last night the email thing surely didn't help. She said 56% of Americans, not 56% of Republicans, think she should have been charged. The trust issues, look at this CBS New York Times poll. 2/3 of American voters think Hillary Clinton is not honest and trustworthy. Donald Trump, a mere 62%. How do you get elected when 2/3 of the American people don't think you're honest or trustworthy?
Jim, you go out there every single day, you say what you're going to do, and you go do it. And look, Secretary Clinton has made a career out of being in the public eye and being accountable. She's done that from the very first days, even as a lawyer for the Children's Defense Fund, from the First Lady of Arkansas, where she dedicated her time there to working for at-risk youth, to a time as First Lady when she worked and trying to take on healthcare reform the first time, to a senator from New York, to Secretary of State.
People know that. The FBI director said she didn't tell the truth.
And the FBI director didn't charge her. So I think we've seen that over and over and over again that Secretary Clinton, who has been in the public eye, subject to more scrutiny than probably any person in public life, certainly in our country and perhaps the world, is still out there asking for the chance to lead our country. And I think given the complexities that we have here domestically and the challenges abroad, there is the debate that we are having between what a Donald Trump candidacy would do and a Donald Trump candidate who can't even manage their own convention properly versus the challenges of what Secretary Clinton has shown the ability to manage the complexities as Secretary of State, as a U.S. Senator, and as First Lady. The choice isn't even close about who's going to be a better steward for this country.
Let's talk about the convention you're going to in Philadelphia. Two differences that I want to focus on. One, we didn't hear anything about gun control last night. We're not going to hear it, I think, in the next 3 days. We'll hear it a lot there. You were part of the sit-in in the House. Do you regret that you ever left the chamber? I mean, essentially nothing came of it except a lot of publicity. Should you have just stayed there with your colleagues until Paul Ryan gave you a vote?
So I don't think that's true that nothing came of it. What came of it even initially was it injected into the public discourse the need to have a vote. And we've seen, Jim, this was an exercise discussed by a couple of us at the very early hours from a couple of weeks ago, and when that sit-in started, to dozens, if not hundreds and thousands of phone calls that poured into offices across all of Congress, hundreds of people that ended up showing up at the plaza in front of the Capitol, staying all through the night, asking their government to be accountable to the needs of its people. There's no more fundamental responsibility that we as members of Congress have. And all that we were asking for from our speaker was a chance to have a vote. Speaker Ryan then said that there would be a vote. Granted, not on a bill we wanted, but on a bill drafted by the NRA and Senator Cornyn from Texas. Republicans didn't even have the votes to pass that bill in the House of Representatives. So we're going to keep pushing for it. I think we've already seen traction that's come so far. We've had not just the sit-in, we've had vigils, we've had meetings, we've done letters. I've sat down with victims of gun violence, survivors of gun violence. We will keep this effort pushing forward until our voices are heard and the speaker gives us a chance to have a vote. We lose, but we deserve a vote.
Speaking of voices are heard, that's one other difference is your voice is going to be heard on Monday night. You know what you're going to say? You're introducing Elizabeth Warren, right?
That's the plan at this point. We're still waiting on some details. We're going to work. I've got some ideas to what I'd like to say.
Barack Obama said some great stuff. Maybe you can borrow if you want. Hey, I don't know if you read Larry Tye's book about your great uncle, Bobby Kennedy. Bobby Kennedy, The Making of a Liberal Icon. He was here the other night, and I said you were coming this week. And I asked Larry Tye about you. Here's what he had to say.
I think he is the closest thing that we have seen in the last 50 years in that family to a Bobby Kennedy, which to me is a great thing to be.
You're a pretty humble character. I know you a little bit. What's your reaction to what he said? Exactly. What is your reaction?
I appreciate the comment, obviously, very, very much. And I would say, Jim, look, my grandfather, I think, means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. For me, he means, and he represents what government can be at its best, which is using the power of your representative democracy to actually address the needs of the people who are most achingly trying to be heard. And we go out there every day, and I try to do that. I think he did that particularly well.
Do you feel a special, you're the only Kennedy in office. Do you feel a special burden? I mean, you don't show it.
No.
Do you not feel a special burden?
No, Jim, look, if the question is how am I going to measure up to Robert Kennedy or President Kennedy, that's a pretty tough comparison to make. I think all that any of us can do, whether you're an elective office or otherwise, is do everything you can to try to find a way to contribute back to our society as best you can. And some of us can do so through elective office if we're fortunate enough to do it. Other members of my family and other people can do it otherwise. Through journalism, through my Aunt Rory's a celebrated documentary filmmaker. She makes it tells incredibly powerful stories. You tap into it the way that you can. My Uncle Bobby's an environmentalist. My brother, Matt, twin brother, worked in politics for years in the administration. So I think the issue is how can you use your own strengths and abilities to serve? And we're trying.
Joe Kennedy, it's nice to see you.
Thank you.
Good luck in Philadelphia.
Thank you.